Welcome to Multifamily Method, a podcast which explores the state of the multifamily real estate market and some of the backgrounds, methodologies, and words of wisdom from some of today's most successful multifamily real estate entrepreneurs nationwide.
And I've always said that you see some of these true characters when they are in a world of pain. And then you get to see what they're really made of. And Schimmel and everybody in this table right here, I can confidently say, I love what you guys are made of because I've seen it. And there's so many people part of Capstone I can say the same thing of.
Hi, I'm Jad Risha, and thanks for joining us. Today, we're going to be speaking with Brian Ford, the founder and managing partner of Capstone Companies, and Mike Mosher, our national director of sales. Brian and Mike will speak to us today about Capstone's humble beginnings, some successes that they're very proud of, and share one big announcement about the future of the company. We're excited to have them both on the podcast today and can't wait to share with you where Capstone is headed. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you. Great to be here. Great to be the only person with hair in the room here today.
I resemble that statement.
Glad to have you guys with us. Today we wanted to talk about Capstone as a company, who we are, where we're going in the future, a little bit of the past and present. So thanks again, guys.
Absolutely. Excited to be here.
All right, so we'll start with Capstone today and how we got here as a company. To date, we have 100% revenue growth from 2019 to 2020 and 120% revenue growth from 2020 to 2021. We're currently the largest privately owned multifamily brokerage company in the nation. We did $1.7 billion in sales in 2020, and we have a projected year-end closeout of over $3 billion in sales for 2021.
All those stats are great, but really the best thing about Capstone's, about this firm is really the culture. And it's exhibited in a lot of different ways. No salespeople have ever left this firm voluntarily. We have one of the highest retention rates in the business. And we absolutely have one of the tightest knit cultures in the brokerage industry. We talked about it on the last podcast with George. You can really see that when we're all together at NMHC or some of the other events that we have. And we've built a culture and a community where we now have brokers from some of the bigger, more corporate firms reaching out to us, trying to learn more about our firm. And I really do think that people choose Capstone over our competitors because of the entrepreneurial nature, because there is no ceiling on what you can accomplish. You're not suppressed by the seniors and you eat what you kill. And we've had guys come in here and make seven figures in their first 18 months with the firm. So there's a lot of great things about this firm, but it all goes back to the culture that's been built here over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, let's go back to some history. Talk to us about how Capstone was started and what your vision looked like when you started the company back in 2008.
Yes, the glory days. I could share stories for hours, and obviously we don't have that time today. But the cliff notes were that we started planning Capstone about a year in advance of when we launched, which was 2 weeks before the markets crashed in 2008. George Schimmel, love him. Hopefully everybody listening today has heard the podcast that he went through on here a few months ago, and he gives some insights from his perspective. He was a millionaire in Wall Street at 28, my best friend. He's my best man at my wedding. Amazing guy. If there's, I have said that there's two individuals that I want to get the movie rights of. One is George Schimmel. The second is another future interviewee, who's going to be on the podcast and hopefully in 2022, but I'm going to have to save that suspense for next time. But George is an amazing individual. And, he said something to me early on that has stuck with me throughout my life philosophy. And he's like, I invest in people and not businesses. And, with that said, I'm glad he did, because I really didn't have a business plan. We had like a mindset, which was we wanted to create a brokerage company that was unlike any other, that had a culture unlike any other, where you could trust the people around you. So I learned early on in my life that I'm never going to be the smartest individual in the room. I'm never going to be the most charismatic individual. So I needed to surround myself with the best individuals, best team. And my philosophy was that the best teams that are in sync, that trust each other, can accomplish anything that they set out to do. And I still feel that way today. So how do you create that in a brokerage world, which is unlike anything that exists today? And that is hiring the right individuals that, from a sales perspective, that are entrepreneurial, that are extremely ambitious, that are non-greedy, ethical, that want to work well together as a team. And so we had to have that. We had to be in the right sector. And when the markets crashed in 2008, we realized that the best place to be was multifamily at the time. We didn't see the run that we had ahead of us, but what they say, half luck is okay. And but the vision was, let's create the best brokerage company that can win and compete against our national competitors. And that is still rings true here today.
Well, we've done it.
Yeah.
I mean, we are competing with our national competitors now. So we've done it. So, I mean, the vision is been accomplished. Now it's where does it go from here? Right. So
very true.
What are some of the most meaningful moments from Capstone's history? Don't hold back.
I think each person that you ask that question, if I were to ask that same question to you all, which I hope to, you'll probably receive a separate answer. For me, there's probably three main things, right? The first one is the amazing amount of relationships and friendships that I've developed, not only within Capstone, but outside, from clients and others in the industry. Thinking about that, like I honestly, I get chills from it, because I have created some of my best friends in Capstone and in clients, some that have an age gap of 20 years. And, but they're close friends, they're second father figures. And that is one of the things that is really the most fulfilling with Capstone, and is so much fun. And I think that probably, it definitely ties into our culture here. The other part is winning. Love to win. We're all very competitive. If you're not competitive, then you're probably not in this industry and you're not listening to this podcast.
Right. That's right.
But winning is not just for Capstone. Winning is not just brokers winning listings. Winning is overcoming obstacles. Winning is doing something that you never thought you could do yourself. And winning can come from so many different forms. And part of the win for me is watching people maybe hit rock bottom or hit some of the biggest obstacles that they've ever faced in their lives, and to see where they go. Chad and Alex, like, I've watched both of you guys hit a point in your career where it was a big obstacle, and you had to look yourself in the mirror and say, all right, what do I do here? Am I gonna stop? Am I gonna quit? Am I like it forced yourself to really look hard in the mirror and get better and get the team better. And what you guys have done is amazing. You're the most well-respected brokers at Capstone. Your clients love you. You're constantly bringing new ideas and into Capstone and into your clients. You're adding value externally and internally, and you've made so many people around you better, and so many people around you more happy. And that is so much fun for me to watch.
Well, and it's, first of all, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
And you talk about team, You don't do that. You can't do that unless you know that you've got support. You don't have we all have internal strength, but you just get a lot stronger when you know that you've got support of the people who are, the higher ups, right?
Yep.
Charlotte, the headquarters for me when I'm in Tampa, it's you guys knowing that when we've had challenges in Tampa, it hasn't been, well, maybe this Tampa thing's not working out. It's let's pour more into it because we know we've got the right people down there, and let's do what we need to do to build them back up. And so it's all comes back to the teamwork, and the winning's more fun when you're doing it with people who you enjoy.
Totally agree, man. Yeah. Totally agree. 100%. And it's, I think, and this even heads back to George Schimmel, is that, and everybody in this room, you truly get to see what somebody's made of when their back's against the wall, and they may be in a life crisis. They may have a horrible thing with life, with work, whatever the case may be. It might be coronavirus and pandemic, and people don't know how to react. And I've always said that you see some of these true characters when they are in a world of pain, and then you get to see what they're really made of. And Schimmel and everybody in this table right here, I can confidently say, I love what you guys are made of because I've seen it. And there's so many people part of Capstone I could say the same thing of. And that is what makes my world go round. I think is seeing that and watching people face their own personal challenges. And my job has been to say, hey, here's what you need to do. Here's the challenge. Let's walk through that. It's your job. We'll provide you the support, whether it's personally or professionally, but you got to go do it. And to watch people do things that they've accomplished, things that they never thought that they'd be able to accomplish, and watching them win is so much fun. And let's face it, we started as a world of underdogs. Yep. In life, we still are. And I think when folks ask, what makes, what separates Capstone from others, I love saying that. I was like, I root for the underdog. You know why? Because I think I've always been one. Hell, I'm a non-charismatic redhead with a speech impediment for crying.
And about 5'8", 5'9".
In my exam this morning, my doctor said I'm starting to shrink already. I'm like, that's impossible. I'm 40 years old. I guess I need to see a chiropractor. That's straighten out the spine here.
I think looking back at it, from my perspective, I'm sure yours as well. It's, when our back has been against the wall, and I can think of a few times throughout my history with the company of some rough patches that we've had. But it's always looking to you and seeing what you've done from, 2012 when I started, 2013. So it's been having that example to follow and say, all right, this is how we get through it. We can, bow down, bow out, or we can take this thing head on. Last year, what did we do? We all, for the first while, we weren't working together in the office, but we all banded together probably better than we ever have as a company. And now, we're talking with the Denver guys every day. I talk to Jad weekly. I talk to the Nashville guys weekly. So I think the company has, come together even more so through the tough times as well.
Absolutely, Alex. Now I would, for sure agree with that. I think the one piece that people forget is the staying with their values and ethics, because that's the easiest thing to do. When times gets tough, maybe I'll float that line. Maybe I'll cross over a little bit. And that is really, heading back to what I said earlier, you get to see what somebody's truly made of in a time of distress, is staying on the value train, staying on the ethics train. I can confidently say everybody here that is at Capstone has stayed on the ethic train, because that is one of the things that is important to us.
Well, you've hired good people, but it's also we don't win business because of the firm name, right? So our, they talk about the name on the back of the jersey, right? Our reputation, our name is, first of all, in life, your name is what you have.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And especially with where we're at as the underdogs, like, you better not muddy that name because you're not going to earn any more business. We need to do it that way because nobody's going, oh, well, we'll just give the deal to Capstone because they're the biggest firm on the block. We don't get deals because we're Capstone. We get deals because we earn the business.
Right. Spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on. But that makes the victory and winning so much sweeter. And then it makes us want to continue that, make sure that we service the deals correctly and we give everything we have, because what's the one thing when you don't have to rely on a cushy brand? Your reputation.
Yeah, that's right.
Reputation's everything. And one deal could haunt us for years.
Yep. I think that our reputation, our work ethic, all those things kind of help combine into our culture. Mike, what do you think has led to the high retention that we've had? I mean, you've known Capstone for the last 4 years. You've been working here for the last 2. What do you think leads to that high retention that we have?
Yeah, I think a lot of the things that Brian has already elucidated lead to that, right? That feeling of friendship and camaraderie, and dare I say it, love amongst people you work with, brings out the best in people. And when people know that you really care, they're willing to stick around through the hard times. And I think a clear example I can give you of that, there's many examples to be drawn from the COVID-19 crisis, but one at Capstone that I love is that tough decisions were made and we decided to keep every single member of our fulfillment staff, even though we're in a pandemic and no deals are getting done. So the bank account's dwindling down, but we had to keep the backs of our people and hope that we work hard enough to come out the other side. And thank goodness we did. While a lot of our competitors and big publicly traded shops are under pressure from investors to lay off. Right. So they did. And people are loyal to you. If you stay with them in the hard times, they'll stay with you, right?
I have a million sayings. And one of the sayings that I always like to say is people don't care what you know until they know that you care.
That's right.
And I think that's like absolutely permeates through our firm, is that everybody knows that the people that are in this room, and whenever, whether it's this room or the room with 50 of us, that everybody cares about you.
So true. So true.
It also seems that if they don't fit that culture, they tend to weed themselves out. Which is
We've had some of that too.
That helps selecting my job a lot easier. But it just could naturally happen. That'd be great.
In Tampa, we've had some personal heartache and tragedy this year, and it's been hard for some of those guys, and it's been hard on us by extension. And but I don't want to speak for those guys. But you can't get through that stuff without knowing that the people that who you spend almost more time with than your family, really, that they're going to be there for you through the thick and thin. And that's not always the case. I mean, I've worked in a bunch of different places and you don't always feel that.
No. And that goes back to the importance of the team.
That's right. Surrounding
cast.
Yeah.
And, wise man told me his name's Robert Fish. He's one of the smartest men, one of my favorite people in the world. He's one of the Avid Exchange co-founders. Avid Exchange just went public the other day. Robert always said, follow the behavior, not the words. And that's a true thing. Especially in our industry where salespeople can talk their way around everything. It's follow the behavior. And I think that's us. Just watch the behavior, follow the behavior, and not the words.
I think that you have been and have always put the culture of Capstone at the forefront. Can you talk to us a little bit about what your role has been over the last few years, how it's shifted a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. It's, I know I haven't ever been one to be focused on titles. And that's why, whenever there's a request to change titles, I always punt to somebody else to handle that request. But I have a little history for everybody. The podcast, I've been essentially the de facto CEO for the last, 13 years. And, some of the things that my favorite things are, I love strategic planning. I love teaching. I think some of my best value to everybody is trying to problem solve from a team perspective and hiring the right teams and making sure that, every office and team's in sync, but then make sure that all of our offices are collaborating. That kind of goes back to culture hand in hand. And so everything we do is related to culture in the company. I think I'm a firm believer that if we have the right people, again, that fit kind of that box from sales and staff, but I'm not a micromanager. I never will be. And as we've grown, that has probably, hurt us a little bit. But the people that we've hired, they need to be self-starters. They need to have ambition and are passionate about being challenged and wanting to get better. Like, how often do you guys hear me preach, let's get better together? Right. And with that, you can't hire people that think they're the best. And that's why our one of my favorite core values is check your ego at the door, because we're all humble. We need to be humble. We need to stay humble and never think that we're perfect and never think that we're at the top, and continue to get better. If we do that, if we continue to challenge each other, we're going to grow as people, and not just a great firm, but we're going to grow together. And that ties in, thanks for what you said earlier, Jed, about who we hire, because that is a huge component. Is our people need to fit our core values, and we're not for everybody. But if you want to work at a place where you can be your own boss, and but you want to work as a team, you want to get better, you want to get challenged, and you want to make sure that your career doesn't have a ceiling to it, like, that's us. Because if you would have asked me 13 years ago, would we be here today? Hell no. Gosh, I was just trying to eat, and something that might actually kind of tie back to the Great Recession of how painful it was, because I think that's very important for everybody on the podcast here, because I think we, like, at our sales workshop, Mike, we did, hey, raise your hand if you've been in the business longer than whatever it is, the 13 years. Yeah. And it was less than half of the brokers had experience. 5 years,
and then who's been with the company 1 year, and it was half of.
Yeah,
I know. So the best statistic that is the most painful looking at it, but it puts it into perspective. Okay, the Charlotte MSA typically has, in the past, in 2019 and 2020, have not checked in 2021. It's probably higher. But in 2019 and 2020, there was roughly 80 apartment transactions over 50 units of size. Okay, Charlotte MSA. In 2009, there was one. In 2010, there was one.
Yeah.
So, from a broker that needs to eat off transactions, we're starving. Thankfully, transaction volume in Hickory was better than Charlotte MSA. And, but it was torture. So for 3 years, I personally was borderline bankrupt, and we put everything we had back into Capstone. And the girlfriend who I was dating at the time, and I ended up obviously not marrying her.
I wonder why.
I was like, you need to get a 9-to-5 job at a bank. And I was like, you just don't get it, do you? This is who I am. I'd rather sleep on my parents' couch if I have to.
Bet on myself every time.
Yeah, every time. And we did. We put everything we had in it, it worked, and very, very grateful for that and for the experience.
Yeah,
I think, and I will never forget that. I cherish it, and I try to teach those of others, of that. It's okay to be humble. It's okay to be vulnerable. If you are, you're going to allow your teammates to get real with you, to be genuine with you. And that's you got to be as in sync with your teammates as you are with your spouse. Yeah.
I agree. And I think that the same applies to your clients too. This is such a relationship business that if you have a huge ego walking in the door, and chances are you're probably not as successful as the guy that you're working for, frankly.
Yep.
Because no matter how well everything's going, there's always going to be a tough conversation that needs to be had.
Right.
Always. And if you're not, if you don't have the relationship foundation built, Like you just can't have it. It's going to disintegrate. It's going to blow up. It's not going to work. But if you've got that foundation built, you can get through those, rocky times or tough conversations or deals that are going a little sideways.
Yeah.
If you got a client that trusts you.
Yep.
And if you don't build that foundation, it's just going to go sideways and you're going to be starting from scratch.
Well, let me ask you this, Alex, Jad, what is it about? What do you think the secret sauce is about our culture? What sets us apart?
I think the secret sauce is hard to just flat out describe with words, right? I think it's way more than one thing. It's a lot about what we've talked about, right? Like a lot of the old school guys that we worked with that have been around forever, like Austin, I can trust Austin with doing anything, right? Just like I can trust you with doing anything. I can trust Jad that same way. Mm-hmm. And I think when you have a foundation that's built that way of a core group, I think adding on to it can be easier. So I think that is a lot to do with the so-called secret sauce. But I know I can call Jad anytime and he's going to have my back, right? And he's in Tampa. We work together, but not every day. Mm-hmm. So I think that part of that is, within that.
I think the way I always try and describe the culture here is it's the people and it's the way. Right. It's the people that we bring in and it's the way that we do things. And we've had people that weren't a good fit. And some of them we identified very quickly, before they even started. And and we have a way that we do things. And if people don't follow the way that we do things, then they're not long for this place either. And we haven't had a lot of those. We've had, a handful here and there. And I always joke with you. I'm always you've heard me say, I effectively find myself to be unemployable in a corporate culture. And so the thing that I appreciate most about the way it's been set up here is everybody can be themselves, just be who you are and be the best version of who you are as often as you can be. But obviously, you're not always going to be the best version of yourself, but just, everybody can be exactly who they are. And we certainly have some unique personalities, but they're encouraged here. They're not suppressed.
Yep.
I will tell you too, what you said about the corporate culture has really struck me. I've learned at Capstone, I had a background in corporate America prior to getting into commercial real estate. And they talk about all these same values, right? But effectively, it's a poster on a wall. Everyone lines up in a factory. They're not all factories, but you're producing a product or a service. You line up and you go home. And no one really cares. And everyone's just climbing the ladder. But with the folks I work with here at Capstone, these are the people I want to go play golf with on the weekend. I want to text Chad if the Browns are winning a football game. I want to ask Alex how to get my puppy trained. She's driving my wife nuts. He had a puppy 6 months ago. So these are the people I want to spend my time with outside of work. And to me, that's been unique and very, very special. And I know every company aspires to that. In my experience, virtually none actually achieve it.
Yeah.
And I think that makes, we work in a very high paced environment, right? Just within the multifamily industry. And I think that makes it easier to go to work, right? So every day you're going to work because you like who you're working with, you like what you're doing. So it makes us even more successful knowing that.
Well, so why don't you share why that transfers into results? Why should our clients care?
Yeah. If you like what you're doing, who you're working with, right, you're going to work with them better. You're going to have a more effective team. If you look at a football team and the quarterback doesn't like the running back, it's not going to go very well, right? And so if you have an effective team, you're going to have effective results and you're going to get the highest price for your client. And that's just how it goes. If you have that communication, if you have a really strong team environment, you're going to always have higher and better results.
Well, and we talked about reputation, right? So you want to maintain your reputation. You built a relationship with the client. We just talked about the way, right? We have a way of doing things, and it's to always try and do things the right way. There's always, in real estate, there's opportunities. There's a lot of gray area, right? And so there are a lot of opportunities to not make the right decision, the ethical decision, but when you care about the people who share your space with you and you know that your decisions could impact them adversely, then you're more likely to think twice about possibly making a bad decision. And so all those things tie into it. The person, the accountability to people who you care about, all those things make you a better broker and make you, more effective with your clients.
I would agree with all that.
All right, we'll take a quick break here.
Multifamily Method is powered by Capstone Companies, the largest privately owned multifamily investment sales brokerage nationwide. Capstone Companies provides dedicated coverage to both primary and secondary markets throughout the Southeast, Mid-Atlantic, and Midwest regions of the United States. Whether buying, selling, or refinancing, Capstone Companies is here to help. Simply put, Capstone is expertise, experience, extra mile. If you're interested in having Capstone provide a complimentary opinion of value on your multifamily asset, please visit us at capstone-companies.com.
Brian, let's talk a little bit about what the future looks like for Capstone.
That sounds great. So, like as I mentioned earlier, I've been the de facto CEO since 2008. Have loved what I've done, and loved all the individuals, the stories, like the whole path. Wouldn't change a damn thing. Started to get to a point where I wasn't. I don't think I was the Capstone that I was using the best of my abilities with Capstone, and it started to impact stress, mental and physical health. And I realized that it was time for a change. And I am one that usually doesn't like change. As my wife, I love you, Heather, will say that I'll never cheat on her because I had the same thing for dinner every night, chicken and green beans. And I'm a diehard Lions fan. Yeah. I'm loyal to a fault.
Yep.
But change is always important. Change is evolution. Change is to grow and to get better. And the first part of change was seeking out a sales director. And in my former life, I was in outside sales for a company called Terryberry. And I did employee recognition award programs for mid to small size companies. And I would travel from hospitals to car dealerships to sales programs. And I got to learn what all these companies did right or wrong, almost like a broker, right? Like you got to learn and still learn what all of these owners and developers do right and wrong.
Right.
And what I learned quickly was that the sales director is probably more important of a role for an impact for culture and growth on a sales perspective than a CEO. And we were very nervous. Maybe me more so than anybody else was nervous about this role. It was so necessary. We started to hit a threshold with the amount of offices and brokers, and I couldn't handle it all. Same with the rest of the team. And so we needed help and we needed talent and we needed the best person that would be a great fit. At the same time, I started to see what maybe a future role need would be. But anyway, so this individual, I sought out Mike Mosher. And Mike, who Jed and I talked about for years, we met at our affiliate firm at the time, which was not a long-term fit in 2017. And Mike had a lot of skills that I hadn't seen in most of the people that we were interviewing and dealing with. He has great emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And great self-awareness. He fits our core values to a T. I could watch him interact with individuals. We got to watch him for a matter of like 2 years in a lot of different capacities, really tough positions from management perspective to operations. And he listened well, absorbed the information well, and adapted. And as a sales director, that is so important. And so we sought out Mike, and thankfully he said yes to be our sales director. And since then, which was in 2019,
yeah,
he he has kept retention rates even higher than they were. Sales volume has grown, as you said, Alex, to percentages that I can't even repeat right now because they're so high and I can't keep track of it. But more importantly, because I pay more important to the fundamentals than I do the statistics, as you guys know, is that the culture was intact and actually stronger.
Yeah.
It was better with Mike as sales director. And I know Jad would like send me, like I'll let you share the story.
So Mike, Mike, we did a lot of business with, at the time, Capstone Capital in 2017, when Mike was really sort of in the same role as sales director. And Mike and I spent a lot of time on the phone because the guy who worked in our office, God bless him, he did not always want to do a lot of the dirty work. And so Mike was a problem solver. Mike was always a problem solver. And you could tell that right away. And Mike was willing to get his hands dirty to come up with solutions. And when that sort of ran its course and Mike left that firm, we were still talking probably once every couple of months, just, hey, how you doing? Mike started his own thing and we would just stay communicating. Yep. And I don't know if you remember this. I told you, I said, just make sure you stay in touch with Brian Ford. Like, do you remember that?
I do remember that. I do listen when you speak.
Yeah. Well,
at least one of us.
So just make sure you stay in touch with Brian Ford. And you were like, why? And I said, I just, I don't know. Like there's things, I mean, the company's growing and you were always a great fit with us. So I said, just make sure you stay in touch with Brian, because who knows what could happen down the road. And that's all I really said. And I didn't have any inside knowledge really, other than the fact that we would talk, Brian and I would talk about Mike and say he was a great guy and he really was added value and those types of things. And I think it was almost in the vein of like doing debt even at that time.
Yep.
And so it just kind of morphed into a different role, basically. But I always go back to what you said. I always tell you, Mike Mosher is the best hire you ever made.
I know.
And you hired me. So that's saying a lot.
That's so true. So true. So heading back to Mike, he's done an amazing job at his role. I knew at the time when we sought out Mike that I had a limited future as CEO for the reasons that I mentioned. And part of our culture at Capstone, the firm belief is that if people are doing what they love and what they're passionate about, this goes back to analysts, admin, marketing, finance, whatever your role is. If people are passionate in spending more time doing what they love, they're going to be so much more valuable to the company than telling them what they need to do. So we were constantly over the last 13 years moving people around, and I've spent a lot of time with people and so did the rest of our staff, and same with AJ and Bo, who was amazing individuals that really structured our foundation, the company, so that we could excel. And I haven't had a chance to have a shout out to those guys. And again, I love those guys. We're still best friends and I could talk about them for hours as well. But we sought out to make sure that the people are happy. And if they're happy, they're going to produce and they're going to add value. Because again, we're not the smartest guys in the room. And that worked. That philosophy worked. And so when I started to be at a place where I just wasn't in a seat I was producing for Capstone at my highest and best value, I knew that I had a ceiling to my future as CEO. And so when we sought out Mike for sales manager, my history about, hey, the sales director is going to be the most important hire of our at that point, 11 years, 10 years, is that, I was hoping that he would succeed at that role so that then we could then put him in a position to replace me as CEO. And that is our announcement here today, is that Mike Mosher is going to be the new CEO of Capstone.
Congratulations, Mike.
Awesome, Mike.
Thank you.
And I can tell you just a few things and then I'll let you have the mic here, is that one of the hardest things as leaders, and whether you're a leader in my shoes or a leader in your office, leader of Capstone, is being humble. And, if you look at emotional intelligence, the definition, you look at like the true definition of self-awareness, the best leaders and the most successful people that have quality emotional intelligence, and everybody thinks they have self-awareness, but you look at the stats, only 10 to 15% of people have true self-awareness, because humble people that are vulnerable, have the true self-awareness, along with a few other characteristics. And Mike has always carried those traits well. And I knew that, all right, if he's got that, he's got the best core values, he's got the trust of our people, he can produce, he's going to be amazing CEO. And at the same time, heading back to team is important, that Mike will not succeed unless he's got the best team around him. We have added an extreme amount of talent and infrastructure around him to be the best executive team that we could have ever been. Heading back to my Robert Fish Avid Exchange, he said that exec teams are meant to do two things: predict the future and problem solve. And that rings true. And so we have created I call it Exec Team 2.0 because I'm not creative enough to think of a cool name. And we have hired externally. We've hired in the last 6 to 8 months 5 new people that will be on the exec team that have already started and or about to start. And we have promoted within 4 new people, 5 new people as well. And this exec team, which will be 8 people total, is, with the combination of Mike, I am so confident that they're going to be doing twice the things and be twice as successful and twice as in sync than I was ever able to accomplish, and our exec team was ever able to accomplish. And I'm so excited for the future. I'm shifting over to the board, and I'm hoping that I can add value in ways that better suit my personality and skills, which is harass you guys, and out of the party.
Rotating beer pong games.
I'm a great beer pong player. And so with that said, this heads into effect essentially like immediately. We're having a quality transition kind of into January 1st. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. It's embarrassing to hear yourself talked about so long. My face turned really red, and it wasn't the wine. Thank you. Thanks for all the kind words. I definitely feel, humbled and grateful and eager to be here, excited about the future and the possibility. And, in all transparency to whoever's listening, I'm a little nervous too, because the machine that was built by Brian Ford and Bo McIntosh and AJ Clank and others, Alex and Jad and so many others, you just don't want to let that trust down, right? We've talked about what the people here mean to me personally. And those are people it'll keep me up at night. It'll get me up in the morning. I can't let this team down. So that's the mindset I'm coming into the role with.
I think that, from a, outside kind of perspective, like a, broker perspective, I guess, it's like talking around with the peers, seeing how the peers react to you. Everyone has such a high level of respect for you that was, in my opinion, one of the most important things for a transition. Everybody in the firm has just a massive amount of respect for Brian Ford, right?
Absolutely.
Massive amount. And so for that transition to happen, how do you find somebody that can step into those shoes, right? And I think that you're the natural selection for that, which is awesome.
Well, I thank you for that. And I do want to say you cannot replace a Brian Ford.
No.
He built a company unlike any I've ever seen. It's the best I've ever been part of. I've been part of 40 billion plus international organizations. They can't touch this company for culture. and what it is. And I'm not even going to try to replace Brian for it. I'm just going to try to be myself and rely on Brian as kind of a goodwill ambassador to continue working on the cultural front and doing what he's great at. And let me pick up a little more of the day-to-day slack, as well as Bo on the operational front and AJ on the biz development and ideas front. That's where each one of the founding partners shines. So let them play to their strengths, right? Mm-hmm. Gallup Strength Finders by Donald Clifton. That's the whole point of that book. If you play to your strengths, you'll be a lot happier, more productive in life.
And I can tell you that, and I appreciate those words, guys. Thank you. It means a lot. Along with many internal strategic initiatives, we are making some more heavier investments into technology, because our goal is to revolutionize the client experience, unlike anything that you've seen out there before. And I feel like in many ways along the way, we were cutting edge. Yep. We were ahead of the technology with the property videos as soon as coronavirus hit. Yep. And our CRM has always been comparable, if not superior, to our national competitors. And we have led the way to be able to again, compete, win against international competitors. And that's not going away, and it's going to get better. And it's only going to get better because of this change. And I'm more confident in the future of the company than I've ever been now. And I'm really excited for the future of our clients. And there's some great things to come. It's about as high level, more detail than I can go, but it's very exciting. And again, it's only going to get better. And I really appreciate our clients providing feedback to what they're looking for, because we can do it. Like, you provide me feedback, we'll make it happen. You let us know what you need to be a better owner, manager, developer. Like, let us figure out a way to make that happen. Right. And I think I want everybody here on the podcast to don't be shy. Equity, debt, like, provide us with what you need and let us figure out a way to make it happen, because that goes back to our strengths. And that's how we got here today.
I might be able to get out of my comfort zone and give you an opinion or two.
We'll save that for tomorrow.
I do think it's important. I would like to highlight something you just said about technology from two perspectives. Mm-hmm. One is internal. So for our fulfillment staff and our brokers, our technology will enhance our team connectivity and effectiveness, right? We're starting to use tools like Microsoft Teams. We can establish chats real time. You don't have 100 emails going back and forth. That's just making us better as people interacting with each other. And the same thing for clients, that the tech that we're looking to implement will simply enhance the interpersonal relationships we've built. That's the point of technology. We're a people company, right? And tech will make us better people. We're not supplanting ourselves with artificial intelligence. Yeah, this is still a human business. We still got to bang out contracts, do deals, and internally work our way through that pipeline.
And there's like, last year was the best example of that, because everybody was relegated to meeting with people over Zoom or video or chat or whatever. And we all hated it. It was effective. It was an effective substitute. But as soon as, everybody was comfortable or safe, or however you want to phrase it, we couldn't wait to get back out in front of people, because it's a face-to-face business.
That's right. That's right.
Yep. Absolutely. So true.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you, Mike, have as a top view or priority for entering into the new position and excelling the company, looking into the future or problem solving?
Yeah, absolutely. So lots of stuff. So we've continued to flesh out the executive team as we've grown, and Brian spoke a little bit to that. We are not supplanting anyone in a current role. We're just enhancing and adding new roles. So we adding a director of finance role, a chief information officer role. We added a new sales director role. We continue to lay out a path. We just met last week in the beautiful mountains of North Carolina. Highly recommend those mountains to anybody. And laid out a path for next year with significant capital improvements focused on the firm and first and foremost around hiring people. So we continue to scale up on the people side. And if we're proactive on that front, we feel that the best ideas will come from the room. So I'm not going to stand here today and tell you I have a crystal clear ball and I know everything. I will tell you, I'm 100% confident of our 95 employees. The ideas are in the room, and I just have to go find them. And if we continue to add talented people, we get to 125 next year, whatever the number is, we'll have more ideas in the room. And that's where it'll come from. That's where the growth is coming from. That's the plan.
Well, I can say that, you played a very important role over the last 2 years. Now you're elevating to a different role. The natural concern is there's a vacuum, there's a hole, there's a void there. Well, we were just all together 2 weeks ago in our sales workshop, and that Sean mostly put together. Is that fair to say? Or had a large hand in putting together?
Yeah,
Sean Welsh, who is our new director of sales. I've been incredibly impressed with Sean. When you told me that you were going to hire somebody, I told you I don't want to talk to that person. I just want to keep talking. I just want to keep talking to you. But I spent a good amount of time with Sean, and I can tell you that I was incredibly impressed with him. His ability to immediately kind of fit in with us. And I'm not just saying that because I got the championship belt, but that I think he's going to do a great job of, filling and expanding the role that you serve. But more importantly, he's just like one of us. He's just like, he
fits all of it, right? The ethics, the culture, the core values of Capstone.
Yeah.
And he's another bald guy.
Another follicle challenge.
Yeah, we need another bald. Well, I had the benefit of working with Sean in the past and knew what a class act he is. And he's so intelligent. I think he'll be a better coach than I ever was, quite frankly. So you want to hire people behind you that are going to fill that seat better than you did and take it to another level. I'll say the same thing about Desiree, who's our new chief brand officer. She's got Ann kind of backfilling behind her in that seat as marketing director. And I'm so excited about Desiree and Ann and what they have planned. David Cummings with our analytics department. And we have Mark and Araniel getting on board in new roles too. And I look forward to getting to know them and seeing what they're capable of as well.
David is, we've all been around to see when David first started, and the growth from David has been just tremendous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so proud of him. Yeah, he's grown up so much in the last couple of years.
I think it's all about who, not how, and it's putting people in the right seats, right? And that's what we're doing, and taking somebody that's been doing 2 or 3 or 4 jobs at any given time, even you, Brian, right? Like we were broker, CEO, everything else, right? And spreading that to extremely competent people that are going to make impact day one.
Yeah, that's right.
And again, who does it impact the most? It's our clients, and it's our service, and everything will improve. And I think that's what I'm most excited about. We've talked a lot about internally what's changing, but the reality of it externally is just going to get better. And that's what matters. Like our clients they're going to have quicker responses, and service time is going to be better, and everything's going to improve, and they're going to experience a different client experience that they've never experienced before.
Yeah, I think, to that point, right? It's faster turnaround times. It's a better overall experience within the technology, how their interaction is with Capstone, interfacing, right? And just overall communication.
And then us adding more and more value to our clients, which again, that's what it matters.
Absolutely. We'll be right back. And we're back. So this is something we do with every podcast. We finish every podcast the same way, and it's with the guest rapid fire questions. So Mike, I'll start with you. What is a book that you recommend to people?
I would say from a business perspective, Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman has changed my life and challenged me to be a better person.
Brian, we'll go with you.
The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Something that I wish I would have read a long, long time ago, but that goes hand in hand to everything I mentioned about a team and the importance of a team and everything you do in life.
What is the best piece of advice you have ever received, either in business or life, and who gave it to you? Start with you, Brian.
I forget who said it earlier on the podcast. I think it was you, Jad. Talk about genuineness, right? And my dad, he came home from work when I was young. He was in outside sales too. And he brought a poster home of a curly redhead, which was me. That was 3 years old, right? Like in the picture, blowing a giant bubble gum. And it was like a a 3-foot bubble gum. And he said that he asked the owner of the company that had this up in their lobby if he could take it home with him. And in the picture of the redhead that looks spitting image of me when I was 3. And at that point I was probably like 11 or 12. And in that it said, be yourself. Who else is better qualified? And that, along with Greg Butterfield of Terryberry, who is my mentor, second father figure for my outside sales job before I got into real estate in Atlanta, he was an amazing individual and taught me so many life lessons. And his thing the whole time was just be yourself. Like, be yourself. And they go hand in hand. Be yourself. Who else is better qualified? And I think when you look back at Capstone, I know this is rapid fire and I'm taking a long time with the answer here, is that we're genuine, and that's important. And that's important. And when we interview people, is if I feel like they're fake, right, and they're trying to be somebody that they're not, they're probably not a great fit. Yeah. Be yourself.
Absolutely. Mike?
Yes, I'm going to answer this question by telling you a story about my father-in-law, Dennis Preachant. It's never anything that he said to me. It wasn't a quote. It was the way he's lived his life. And I just talked about Emotional Intelligence, that book by Daniel Goleman. That's the intellectual side of learning, but there's the practical application of learning, right? Right. In fact, the Germans have 2 words for knowledge, and one is a practical hands-on experience. The other is like a book learning. And I very much subscribe to that. Dennis has some of the best emotional intelligence I've ever seen. He was an executive human resource professional on boards of international companies and local companies and the like. And he has a wonderful way with people. He always gets buy-in. He always stops and says, what do you think? He always reads people. He's never waiting to speak. He's always hearing what you say. I've just never seen anyone like him. He's just so talented. And so I took so much away from that in my life. I'm like, I want to be like him.
It sounds like you're describing yourself.
I know. I wasn't, but I'm telling you, 20 years ago, I had none of that. And he's been such a huge influence in my life. And I've modeled so much of myself after what I saw him do. He's changed me for the better. And it's made a world of difference in my life.
That's awesome.
Very impressive. Mike, if you could go back and change one thing throughout your career or life, what would it be and why?
I would have left the corporate medical sales arena a lot earlier because commercial real estate's a hell of a lot more fun.
What about you, Brian?
So I don't have any regrets. Just want to set that stage. I got married in 2015. And to a psychologist. And Heather, love you. She sees adolescent and teenage girls and that suffer from extreme anxiety and unfortunately sometimes physically harm themselves. And she has taught me a lot. She has made me a better person and a better businessman. And I never took in emotional intelligence or self-awareness or mental health in general until actually years after we got married. And the best thing, and you probably heard this on Schimmel's podcast, is that I always said that coronavirus, like I looked at as like, yes, it sucks for all the reasons that we hate it, but you have to look at the benefits, right? The benefits are that it exposed everybody's weaknesses in their life, from how bad they hated their house floor plan to their spouse, to their neighbor, to their work, right? It forced you to change everything. And that's a gift. That's like, if you change and use that, like that's us, right? You get better. And the one thing that really forced me to emphasize with everything at Capstone is mental health. Mm-hmm. And so to head back to your question, I would have made mental health and self-awareness and emotional intelligence an actual more important thing early on in my career because it ties into everything.
Well, and it's so critical in our business, which is so stressful and so hypercharged and so, such a roller coaster too, right?
Yeah. I mean, how many guys have you seen get burnout?
Dozens.
Yeah. And then with mental health, you're constantly providing advice to others that are very, from type A personalities to times of crisis. Like you have to be able to adapt in that.
And especially if you're in a leadership role in this business, you've got to do a lot of that too.
Yep,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Last rapid question. Apropos for the topic today, what's the one thing that you've yet to accomplish that you'd like to pursue or accomplish, I guess, in the future? We'll start with you, Mike, since you're sitting in the big chair now.
And it can be business or personal.
Or personal.
Yes, I'm going to go personal on this one, and I'll tell you all a story. I have 6 maps on the wall behind me because during COVID and the Zoom era, you had to rearrange your office. And thank God my wife, Anna, has a sense of aesthetic appeal and rearranged everything because I have none of that. And we picked 6 maps out. 4 of them are places I've either lived or traveled to extensively and mean a lot to me personally. 2 were aspirational goals, and that's my answer to the maps behind me in my office. One is the eastern coast of Australia. I've never been. And the other one is the city of London. Okay. I'd like to travel to both those places.
Now's not the best time to go to Australia, just for the record.
Long-term goal.
Brian?
Is it okay if I provide a business and personal?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So business, which is something that's in progress right now. So in college, I played rugby at Elon.
Yes, we all know.
I think it's in his corporate profile.
Thank you, Jad. Really appreciate that one. And I wrote a movie script with my business partner, Taylor Barnes. And we hired somebody to help us, and it never went anywhere. Fast forward 17 years later, we picked it back up. And we're shooting to be a Netflix series, and we've hired a screenwriter, and that's in process. So outside the box.
Yeah, very.
But that's
your business goal.
That is
interesting. Do we have Seth Green lined up yet?
You know him, don't you? And then from a personal level, so I have a 2-year-old at home who I love, Isabella, and because she's born in a pandemic, I really don't have a lot of great external experiences with her. Like we've taken her a few different places, but that is what I'm looking forward to, is like experiences with hopefully Isabella and future children.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again for Mike. Congratulations, Mike. Huge congratulations in order.
Thank you.
We appreciate your insight. Appreciate you guys taking some time. And
yeah, I definitely think we need to have a toast to Mike in his new role.
Agreed.
And Capstone. Look forward to the future growth.
I love you guys.
Cheers. Love you too, buddy.
Love you too.
Thank you for listening to Multifamily Method. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps our podcast get discovered by other savvy investors like yourself. Subscribe to Multifamily Method for free on your podcast platform of choice. Find out more about Capstone Companies at capstone-companies.com. Multifamily Method is executive produced by Capstone Companies. Audio production for the podcast provided by Andy Go of Gojo Studios, and video production by Yash Mystery of Mystery Projects.